On this episode of Star Trek Universe Podcast, Sarah and Amanda have a really nice house, and I want it. Sorry, we're reviewing Light and Shadows, Discovery 207, right after this.
Welcome to the Star Trek Universe Podcast. My name is Matthew Carroll.
My name is Sarah and Amanda's house. David C. Robertson.
All right, let's dive right into this episode. We both have a limited recording time today, so let's just get into it. Give us that sweet summary, my man.
That sweet, dirty CBS All Access summary.
Yeah.
Burnham goes to Vulcan in search of Spock, where she unearths surprising family secrets. And researching what is left of the Red Angel signal over Kaminar, Pike and Tyler end up in battle with time itself. Georgiou has a few tricks up her sleeve for Leland and Section 31.
I really enjoyed this episode.
Yeah, I did too. I do feel like this episode should have been called something else. Something beginning with time.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I agree. That was probably my favorite little bit that ran through the episode.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoyed all of the stuff that was happening on Discovery, and it made me all the more. I feel like this is one of the first episodes that's Pike has been our protagonist.
Right.
Every other episode, Pike has been the captain, and we've really been focused on another character. In this, Pike was our main protagonist of this episode. It made me love him all the more, and I just want a Pike show so bad.
I wouldn't kick a Pike show out of bed.
Yeah. Or I want him to stick around somehow. I would like him not to leave. He's been such a fun character. But I felt the same way about Lorca, so.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I miss Lorca every day.
Every day. The Burnham storyline was a little more, I could have taken it or leave it. Left it. It didn't, I don't know. I didn't love it.
I actually enjoyed it quite a bit.
Good. I'm glad.
That was like the meat of what I talked about in my notes.
Oh, interesting.
I mean, it wasn't just the Michael Burnham storyline. It was everything with Spock, everything with Amanda and Sarek. We're not getting a lot of Spock right now. Like we finally have Spock, but he's, kind of out of it.
I feel like they're like slowly settling us into Spock.
Mm-hmm.
Like if we've heard about Spock all season and seen him as a child and and now it's like, and now you see him crazy. Like, they're like getting us used to, it's like a frog in boiling water,
Mm-hmm.
It's like they're slowly getting us used to, this Spock, so we might accept him a little more.
Yeah. I've seen some throwback from some backlash from the fans. Wow, what did you think of Spock basically being dyslexic?
I guess I was curious if there's a precedent for that in any way.
I don't think so. Like, I mean, obviously there's no, being dyslexic doesn't mean you can't be brilliant.
Sure.
And I love that idea that there was something like that there was something else that he had to go through when he was a kid. And what I really love is that it was Amanda's fault in her mind. Another human flaw to sully his Vulcan blood. I really enjoyed that.
The thing that sort of bothers me about it is that I like the fact that Spock just being a human was his flaw. You know, and him being raised on Vulcan with all these Vulcans making fun of him for just being a human, giving him that extra special need, while, is very human, and it's truth to that. It almost makes some of the, it gives them an extra reason that I don't know if they needed. Like him just being human. I feel like they could have had all these same conversations, except just have it about him being a human on Vulcan, or half human,
Yeah, I think it just adds an extra little layer to Sarek and Spock's relationship that it felt like it was always there. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel out of sorts. It just feels like one more little jab into Sarek's side.
Yeah, it doesn't feel out of sorts to me. I just don't know that I needed it. This whole episode, I feel like, would have functioned just as well. I almost felt like the only reason they included the dyslexia thing was the 6-digit number being backwards, which, I'm kind of bothered by the 6-digit number thing in general.
Why's that?
My main qualm with it is she called out to the database, Starfleet database, and said, here's a 6-digit number. Give me all the information you have about this 6-digit number.
Oh yeah, that was weird.
And it came up with one answer.
Yeah,
like,
that's
in all of Starfleet, that 6-digit number has been used for this one thing.
that was a little weird.
That was dumb. It should have been like, here are some, possible answers. Like, Google right now, if I look up that 6-digit number, Google will give me way more options.
Yeah, I meant to go back and actually listen to like her exact wording and just hope like hell that something was in there that goes, oh, okay.
I didn't write her wording down, but I did rewind it to listen, and I don't think there was anything in there. It was just like, literally, database, look up this number and give me everything you have. And it was like, Talos 4. It's like, that's dumb. That's real dumb.
Well, it didn't do Talos 4 because it didn't know what that number was. Was it?
That's what
did
the
she say that
said.
after it was? Did she figure out? Was that after she figured out that it was backwards?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So she gives the 6-digit number to the computer, and she even says these 6 digits in this order, as if like that cracks the code. Which I mean, it would have given her the right, the right number, but it still wouldn't have given her a specific thing. Like, if you don't, there's just so many things that 6-digit number has been used for even now, much less 400 years from now or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
300 years from now? I don't know where we are.
It would have been, this would have been what, 2260 something.
Okay. So it's 200 years. But still, that 6-digit number, it should have been like, oh, here's like, here's 50 options. And it could say like, here's the most relevant information or something like that. But here's a 6-digit number, search the Federation database and come up with one answer is dumb.
Right. I agree. That's a little much.
And I kind of felt like they included the dyslexia thing only as a way of getting at that. I felt like almost all the conversations they have about their relationship, about him feeling ostracized, all of that could have just been because he was half human, which already existed. So I guess I have a problem with that, unless they go forward and try to do more with it, maybe. But I kind of feel like they're going to drop it after this, which I don't know.
Maybe they will, maybe they won't.
Also, he apparently is still suffering from it, so should we have... they often take a small thing from the original series or whatever and drop it into this and blow it out to a bigger idea. Mm-hmm. Like the Alice in Wonderland thing they just did. It makes me wonder if, like on some episode of Star Trek, Spock just said 2 numbers backwards and it was like a production mistake and they're like, ha, we got something.
Oh.
It'd be really funny if everyone's complaining and they go, oh, but in episode 78, Kirk says this and Spock says the number's inverted backwards. Back to him. Oh, man. But I really liked all the Discovery stuff, so it's funny that me and you kind of focused in on different things on this episode.
Yeah, I mean, I loved all the moments between Spock and Burnham as children. I thought those were nice little, like, character bonding moments. Dude, I loved Amanda standing up to Sarek.
Oh, I loved Amanda standing up to Sarek. That was cool.
Yeah, like, telling him that, she has not abused his authority because she does not live under it.
Oh, yeah, that's one of my quotes. I don't live under your authority. I'm your wife and your partner. Try again, husband.
That was fantastic.
The try again husband is my favorite part because it's obvious that they've had these sorts of arguments their entire marriage where he's coming at her with logic and she's got to be to him the most frustrating wife because she challenges him. She's not challenging him with logic. She's challenging him with like her emotions and the situation. And like, she's not like, you are wrong because your logic is flawed. She's like, listen, I'm me. I don't know. She's just being so herself. She's in herself there, and I just love it. I love the idea that they've had them having sort of Kirk Spock type or McCoy Spock type arguments their entire marriage.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't know. it felt like it was heavily informed and switched by the original series episode Journey to Babel, where Sarek and Amanda make their first appearance. Because Amanda is just, in that episode, Amanda is just unafraid of just slapping the shit out of Spock for being an ass and not saving his dad. And we've got the opposite here, where she's just like, you are an asshole. We are saving your son. Well, you know he did not do this.
Interesting. Yeah, that's it's interesting that she's having to fight against the sort of cold logic of her loved ones so that they will get out of themselves and like go do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, she is sick of putting up with these stubborn ass Vulcans, man. I don't know. I don't remember this actress's name, but she does a fantastic job of channeling Amanda, as far as I'm concerned. Still iffy on Sarek.
Yeah, it's been a long time since I've seen any Amanda stuff. Yeah, speaking of Sarek, I know that Vulcans have emotions and that they are controlling them because if without control they go nuts or whatever, they can't, but I know it's not a problem. I know Spock shows emotion in the original series, all of that. But to me, like, a pure-blooded Vulcan like Sarek would have a pretty good control over his emotions. And I just feel like they put so much emotion into Sarek.
Well, it depends on the matters of family and whatnot. Like, Sarek has always had emotional responses when it comes to Spock. He's always been stoic and stubborn, and he puts up a good front on the original series, much more so than Mark Leonard did a great job of playing that line. And James Frain always just seems like he's on the edge of emotion.
Yeah, he does. And that I think is what bothers me about his performance, because I'd like to see like a knowledge that he loves his son and daughter and wife, but his religion is keeping him from showing it. Mm-hmm. Instead, I just feel like he's always about to cry.
Yeah, or smirk or something. Like,
yeah, exactly. He says in this episode, he says, "I'm not prepared to lose both of my children on the same day," which admittedly is so the problem with that statement isn't that he almost cries when he says it.
Yeah.
But not only does he almost cry, but I don't think a Vulcan would say that. Because to not be prepared, just the idea of not being prepared for your children to die or to lose your children, that is an emotion. Like, I don't think that the Sarek we know, even if he had all that emotion under that deep, like his religion would not allow him to say that, because he's acknowledging that he is not emotionally prepared. Like, he doesn't say emotionally, but that's what that means. I'm not prepared.
I'm gonna disagree with you here, and I would direct you to Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, when Mark Leonard's Sarek shows up at Kirk's apartment and is borderline frantic for a Vulcan. Like, he's shaking a little bit, like there's a quiver in his voice. He's aggravated with Kirk because he doesn't understand why Kirk wouldn't have gone back to Vulcan to bring his Spock's Katra home. Until, of course, he does the Vulcan mind meld and realizes, oh, you couldn't touch him. He didn't give it to you. But he was frantic. He's passionate. Like, he trusted you. How could you not do that?
Yeah. I'm not saying that he hasn't shown emotion. To me, all of that you just said, though, and I admittedly haven't seen that scene in a long, long time. But all the stuff you just said, to me, sounds like there's a legitimate problem, and he is agitated because he is hurried and the emotions are there, but he's not necessarily saying anything emotional. He's saying, this was your duty. You didn't do this thing. And he may be flipping out on the inside, and that may be spilling over. So I don't even really I don't have a problem with the emotional quiver necessarily in Sarek's voice, although it bothers me a little bit. What I have a problem with is him just acknowledging that, like, I guess maybe that's the thing, is like he realizes his emotions for his children are so strong that if he would lose himself if he were to lose both his children.
I think that is, that might be true, but Sarek has that disease anyway, and I don't know how far back it would have started to creep in, but I think that's what he died of in Next Generation. He had that disease that made him lose control of his emotions.
Yeah.
But usually he was very stoic and in control. And but when there's even a line, something about not being able to trust himself when it comes to matters of his son. Something like that. I can't remember exactly where that is or what that line was, but I apologize.
Talking it through, it doesn't bother me as much, because if that's the thing, is that like he believes wholeheartedly that he should hold on to the Vulcan ideals, and then he knows that he has a hard time with that when it comes to his children, then I can understand that maybe that is something he would say. It just seems like he was always better at least attempting to be emotionless. Like, that's the whole idea.
I don't remember exactly what it was, and I'd love to go back and look, but I'm wondering, Spock and Sarek were supposed to be like estranged, according to Journey to Babel. So they should have been estranged for like something like 15, 16, 17 years, something like that. I really want to be able to go back and look at that before we did this show, but I didn't have time.
Right.
So I'm wondering, like, does it count? Like, can you be estranged if one of you's kind of nuts? And
well, you can be estranged and still see each other.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yeah. But estranged just means you have a bad relationship, which we know they did before all of this. Spock hasn't talked to Burnham or Sarek in a long time.
Mm-hmm. And Spock went against Sarek's wishes and joined Starfleet instead of the Vulcan Science Academy.
Yeah.
And that's caused a huge rift in their relationship. And, but see, that's, I don't know, that's one of those things that I love about their characters is like, in Journey to Babel, like after they're so stubborn, such assholes, like Spock was going to let his dad die. Like his father is just like not, going to show him any emotion or any love or whatever. And Amanda's just pissed off about it. Finally, she gets them to do the right thing. And at the end, there's this interchange where it's like, emotional, isn't she? Yeah, she has always been that way. Indeed. Why did you marry her? At the time, it seemed the logical thing to do. Mm-hmm. They're just such assholes.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the beauty of the whole idea of the Vulcans, is just like, I really love seeing a character that we really see that is not a human. They like really don't think like us. And that's my biggest problem with all these newer interpretations and the old interpretations too. They weren't always careful about it then either. It's not like they were perfect and this is bad.
Right.
It's just that like I really wish they were a little more respectful of the idea that these are a different race of people that think very differently. I feel like they are so want to tell a human story, like the producers of these shows, that they just put all this humanity on these characters so that they will connect with them. But the whole idea to me is that they're novel. They're interesting because they're different and when they think about things differently. That's my whole issue with them being more emotional. It just feels like the producers are throwing out the window when they need to. And that goes for the original series all the way through. So it's not like inconsistency. It's not like a canon issue for me. It's just like, it's actually funny. The Orville, I know you haven't watched that still, right?
Yeah. No, I haven't.
They have a character named Isaac on the Orville who is an android, basically. And what I love about him is that he's not trying to be a human.
Yeah.
He has no desire to be a human. He's just a robot that thinks completely differently than you or I think. And it's not like a Data. Yes, he thinks differently than you and I, but he's like striving to be a human. And in many ways, Spock is looking to resolve his humanity with his Vulcan nature.
Right.
And I think back, that is one thing that's kind of cool about Voyager, as much as I don't like Voyager, is that we do get the character of Tuvok, who is just a Vulcan. Like, he's not a Vulcan, half Vulcan, half human.
Right.
We get an actual character that we actually get to see for 7 seasons that is a Vulcan and lives by Vulcan, rules.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a neat thing. I don't know that they ever did enough with him though. I feel like he was kind of relegated to a B character, but.
Well, anything that they could have given him, they pretty much gave to 7 of 9 or the Doctor.
That's true. That's true. Well, see, no, that's the thing. 7 of 9 and the Doctor are what I'm talking about. They're the Datas or the Spocks, where they're like struggling between humanity and what they were born as. Or what their current programming, fighting against it and trying to become more human. And that's what I like about the idea of a Tuvok on a show, is that he's not trying to do that. He never really tried. But because of that, they just never gave him anything interesting to do on the show. It seems like very rarely was he the focus of an episode. And I would have loved to them to dive in and like, what is it really like to be a Vulcan? Like, what is it like from their perspective, you know?
Yeah, I don't think they went. There were a couple episodes that had come to mind, but I don't remember them really going into Tuvok too much. What's funny is I do tend to think that fans get this idea in their head of what a Vulcan is.
Sure.
And get angry like this. The Voyager had a Vulcan that was too emotional. Enterprise now has a Vulcan that's too emotional. And I would direct them back to, different Vulcans throughout from the original series onward. And the real problem is we don't have much access to the Vulcan culture,
right,
except through Spock and then subsequently Sarek. And the real problem is none of those actors are Leonard Nimoy or Mark Leonard. And that's just the problem. Like,
right,
they're so awesome, and they're so, like, they have the specific thing that they do. And it makes sense because, they're father and son. And I think they kind of, Mark Leonard maybe even tried to inform his performance based on Leonard Nimoy's. But I don't think most people play Vulcans the same way. Like, they try to do some sort of mimicry of Nimoy, and they're just not getting it somehow. So I think, to me, like, all Vulcans are just kind of like whatever.
Well, we have our most of our picture of what a Vulcan is just how they relate to humans, because every Vulcan we've seen at least every Vulcan we've seen in a regular basis has just been a single Vulcan living on a crew full of humans, and the unique challenges that come with those butting up against each other. But I would be interested in like a mini series or something that was just like a Vulcan science vessel doing Vulcan things, and what kind of, because we know that the Vulcans still have disagreements. We know that there's like this like group of terrorists that tried to kill Sarek last season. Like, all that stuff to me is interesting. The idea that these people have lived by complete logic, but they still disagree, or they're trying to live by the tenets of logic, but they disagree on where that logic leads them. I don't know. It's all interesting. I'd like to see more of that. I'd like to know more about how the Vulcan community is separate from humans works.
Yeah. What comes to mind is that Family Guy bit, the British drive-by, where they just roll down the window and the guy yells out, "I respectfully disagree." Or whatever it was.
That's good.
Yeah, it does. It just feels like that would be a show that would just be like polite disagreement. Unless there is like an extremist who decides to blow himself up.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you bottle your emotions, man.
I guess so. Well, the thing is that guy, you will go back and watch that guy blow himself up. He's not emotional about it at all. I don't think it is emotion. I think he's like led himself to a place. Well, and I think that's always been the undercurrent in Star Trek, is that Vulcans think they're not making emotional decisions, but they often are.
I think a truly enlightened Vulcan would realize that the reason that they followed the rules of Surak was because their emotions ran so deep, and they were so hot-blooded that they were about to destroy themselves. You know what I mean? As a species and as a culture. And that's why they turned to logic. Yeah. So, and in fact, they're probably way more emotional than human beings.
That's the thing that also interests me about that whole idea is we've never seen that. That's their religion. That's their lore. Like, it is very possible they were just similar to humanity. And that whoever came up with what is the Vulcan religion called? I keep wanting to say it and I'm just not thinking of it.
Idic? it's not really a religion. It's just,
I'd call it a religion.
Well, there's IDIC, which is infinite diversity, infinite combinations, but that's not really the logic thing.
No.
And I don't remember I just know the teachings of Surak is how I've always heard of it. I know
the teachings of Surak. Maybe that's what I'm trying to think of.
There's an offshoot species that they thought had died out or whatever that was on Next Generation that were still using psychic-based weapons. Like, the Vulcans had psychic-based weapons.
Well, and that's the other thing. Their minds are very powerful with their, telekinetic and telepathic, or I guess telepathic abilities. Not telekinetic. So I guess if you have any emotion and you have the ability to kill people with your minds, that could be a problem.
A little bit.
Okay. So I'm totally interested, in all of that stuff. I enjoyed the relationship stuff in that side of the episode, but I was pretty annoyed at the whole 6 digits and just I felt like there were plot holes to me. And I just kind of wanted to get back to the adventure storyline going on the Discovery, which is what I would like to get into now.
Sure. I'm sorry, I detoured you.
No. We just discussed the one half of the episode, and now let's get into the other half of the episode. I just had so much fun with all the time problems they were having. I really enjoyed Stamets being like a time badass. One of my favorite moments in this episode was just when there's Pike. It actually made me laugh a lot. Pike, Stamets, and Ash Tyler are on the shuttle, and they're all trying to solve the problem. And Pike is doing what he does best, which is command and trust his people. Before Stamets even has the calculation ready, he has already set the thing to explode.
Yeah.
Which was probably a little premature, but he knew he had to get out of there. He knew he had to shut down that, he was just making the hard decisions just all in that moment. So it's like him making hard decisions, trusting his people, Stamets doing what he does best, which was, calculating and doing the thing that he'd been trusted to do. And so they're all three doing they're doing the thing. And then you look over to Ash Tyler, the Klingon blooded, security officer, and he's just banging on the probe with a wrench. I love that they're all three trying to solve the problem in their own ways and functioning the way they are supposed to on the crew. But that manifested itself as Ash Tyler just banging with a wrench or something, whatever he's holding, just a pipe. He's just banging on the probe.
That was fun.
Cracked me up.
So who do you think it is that's modifying their probe to come back and attack them from 500 years in the future?
Who in the future, 500 years in the future, who needs a probe to do all of this? That's insane that they use their own probe. If they have the ability to send things forward and backwards, they could have just sent some of their modern technology, but instead they intercepted a probe and sent it back to them, which is weird. Unless you're the Borg.
Nah, I don't know, man. That didn't look like some Borg stuff. That was something else.
It doesn't look like 24th century Borg stuff,
right?
Or 23rd century Borg stuff, but it could well look like 27th century Borg technology. I think the reason Borg come to mind is it also reminded me a lot of the technology that was in there reminded, and even all the coloring and those arms, it reminded me a lot of the Matrix. And those, cybernetic, or whatever, and they're not androids. They're, whatever, the artificial life in the Matrix. So, I was just man, could this be what the Borg eventually, could that be what Borg technology looks like in the 27th century?
Yeah. Wouldn't it be the 28th century?
I thought you just said they were, 28th. So they're in the 22. So 2700s. Yeah. So it'd be the 28th century.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is not the furthest we've seen in Star Trek. We've seen 29th century. I think I want to say the 30th or 34th or something. I don't know. I don't remember where.
After Discovery would be the 33rd if Craft was 10,000 years in the future.
Yeah.
So, Yeah, who would intercept a probe, send it back that way? And the only thing that isn't much of a mystery to me, at least I think this is why they're wanting the information. I don't think they're looking for a specific piece of information. I may be wrong. They might be looking for a specific piece of information, but I think they're looking for general information about a snapshot of what's happening right then, because I think they're trying to change things in the past. We're getting a Terminator storyline is what I think we're getting. I think we're getting someone in the future trying to affect things in the past in such a way that it leads to whatever result they want. And I think we might be getting, in this episode, they talked about this being a malevolent force sending this probe back. But last episode, they were talking about the Red Angel is probably a benevolent force. At least Pike felt that way. It could just be two different forces.
Could be. It could be someone from the future tracking the Red Angel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The Red Angel could be someone who is, wasn't the 29th century was when those future cops were coming back into Enterprise. Is that right?
I think that was Voyager.
Oh, you're right. You're totally right.
And then Daniels was from a further point. But I don't remember that's what I was trying to remember earlier is what century he was from.
Oh, okay. See, I thought he was 29th. Okay. So but that's not that, if he's from, so what is 29th then? Is 29th when we saw the universe destroyed or whatever in Voyager?
I think the 29th century is like the temporal fleet.
Yeah, that's what I'm getting at. That's not that far off from 500 years in the future. I don't know if they last 100 years or whatever, but it's very possible this is like the beginnings of the temporal fleet or some form of it.
If you look at, I was thinking about this the other day, because if you look at DS9, the Trials and Tribulations episode, temporal investigations seems a lot like Section 31.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if Section 31 doesn't become the temporal fleet.
Yeah. No, it definitely seems like the kind of responsibilities that would be relegated to Section 31. Because time travel is just too insane to mess with. Because everything you do, the butterfly effect is real.
Yeah. I don't think that the temporal fleet is just what Starfleet becomes. I think something else is going on with temporal fleet. Because they were always shady.
Yeah.
In Voyager.
Yeah. So my short answer is I think we're getting two different forces coming back. Whatever's going on, I think two different forces are coming back and having some sort of war on their turf. Which,
by the way, Daniels was a temporal agent from the 31st century.
Okay. Man. I'm very intrigued by what's going on in the future of Star Trek and how they're giving us a lot of information. I mean, we know about the temporal fleet. We know, the 29th and 31st century. And now we know the 33rd century has craft where it appears that humanity has splintered into two different groups that call each other different things. Yeah. That's all. Yeah. It's just interesting that we have so much knowledge, but no knowledge really.
Yeah. Man. Cool.
Yeah, it is. Pike is, definitely my favorite this episode. I really liked how he, kept doing the right thing by Ash Tyler, even after he saw that vision.
Oh yeah, I loved how they came to terms with each other and learned to respect one another. That was all really solid. But I actually made a note about that. Like, I loved that he did not act on what seemed like was going to go a certain way.
Yeah, absolutely. He made a non-paranoid decision.
Mm-hmm. Even though it totally looked like Ash was attacking him.
Yes, and it also sounded like he was speaking Klingon as well.
Yes, and he did. When he was upset when that thing was attacking him, he was yelling in Klingon. He absolutely did.
Okay, I thought he just yelled out, and then through the garbled nature of the time vortex, whatever, it sounded like Klingon.
Which is exciting for what that means to me for his character, like what that could mean. Like when he's being attacked, he suddenly becomes Klingon again. Like he starts screaming in Klingon. That's cool. Okay,
yeah, it is. I love Ash Tyler. Ash Tyler's a super fun character. I do wonder if that situation would have been different if in his vision it was Ash Tyler shooting him.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I wonder how that would have changed the calculus of the situation for Pike.
Yeah. Well, as it is, Pike shot first.
That is true. That is true. Let's see. What else did happen? Everything else, yeah. So in the very end, Arium is affected, is infected with, it looks like, with some sort of virus from the future.
Yeah.
Is she a full-on, is she a synthetic life form? I don't know what her deal is.
She has been referred to as an augmented human.
Oh, wow.
Not genetically.
No, I get it, yeah.
Yeah.
Like technologically augmented.
Yeah. And I make that distinction because I've seen people complaining about the eugenics thing and how that's supposed to be outlawed. And I'm like, this is technology. It's not.
That is clearly not genetic manipulation.
They just don't like the word augment.
Yeah. They changed her genes so she'd have a metal face.
Yeah.
Not how genes work, people. So, what do you think about Leland being responsible for Burnham's parents' death?
That was a sticking point for me because it's interesting that he's responsible for Burnham's parents, but I mean, I don't know. My guess is we're going to go back to the whole nation building got a bit too messy thing from Cornwell. I guess they were trying to instigate a war with the Klingons or something. I don't know, but my big sticking point is who cares? Like why would he care if Burnham knew? Like, what does that mean for him?
Yeah.
He's like
exactly.
A captain on a Section 31 ship and she's just some commander? Like
that bothered me that like somehow Georgiou's using that for leverage. Now, if she'd said, I know about your war crimes and I could get you like whatever brought up on charges, that's fine. But using Burnham as a stick in that situation seems dumb.
I mean, maybe that was the implication.
Right. I think it was a couple episodes ago. She said something similar, and I think it was more direct. Like, I know your secrets, but it just seemed like a weird way to put it, for sure.
I mean, it was a very much, we know that someone is watching this, and it's going to be like, oh snap, kind of way of saying it. And
what if I told the main character about this?
Right. It's like, I don't know. The main character didn't know, I guess.
Oh, gosh. Two other kind of things that annoyed me in this episode. We've talked about Star Trek VI and how it is about members of the Federation coming to terms with the Klingons and learning to live in peace with them. Learning to live in peace with past enemies.
Yeah.
There's a line in this where Ash is trying to convince Pike that he's good, and he says the war is over, and then Pike says my problem isn't with the Klingons, and like, okay, maybe Pike's just a better man than Kirk and Spock and McCoy and like, well, I guess maybe not Spock. All of them seemed pretty. They were all pretty racist in number 6 against Klingons, and I'm kind of annoyed that like Pike is so evolved at this point.
I'm okay with it, man. Here's why. Pike's issue wasn't with the Klingons. Pike's issue was with the guy that snapped that doctor's neck.
Sure.
Kirk and we're talking about with a situation with Pike is like there was one war that he had to sit out and he's annoyed with. And
he also never dealt with them directly. He sat out of the war. He was away.
Kirk and I think there were like Kirk, Scotty, the majority of the crew. I didn't really get that from McCoy so much because he's always been the bleeding heart. But most of the crew, save for McCoy and Spock, I feel, were kind of racist, and they weren't like, they weren't trying to be. I don't think they realized they were being prejudiced, and that was kind of the point. But they've also been like in hostilities with the Klingons since they can remember. Like, this has been like the Cold War. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I love about Star Trek 6 is this, it really is like there's this whole crew of woke ass people and they still let prejudice creep in. And the primary prejudice that is on display is Kirk's prejudice.
Sure.
But that prejudice wasn't there necessarily. I mean, maybe it was creeping in slowly over all these years of Cold War with the Klingons. I mean, especially if you go back a Day of the Dove, like that is a different kind of Kirk. That is a very woke Kirk. But, you know, by Star Trek 6, the Klingons killed his son.
That's true.
You know, he's endured like, you know, decades now of hostilities with the Klingons that pretty much culminated in a renegade group of Klingons, so much for honor, trying to steal Genesis and killing his son. Like, there's something there for sure. Like, he's got issues.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I'm not saying that it's like a flaw by any means, but I was kind of like, it felt a little bit like the sanitization of Star Trek, like we've talked about many times, where I kind of wish the characters hated the Klingons at this point. They just got out of a war with them, you know?
Well, I think clearly Michael did in season 1.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But that's a little, like you said, that's because they directly killed someone they loved instead of just general racism, which I think, like, it's hard to tell parables about things like racism when you can't give them to your main characters. When you feel like you have to make Starfleet so woke that they can't have flaws. And I don't think that's the case on this show for the most part, but I did feel like that was a slight nod to that, I guess. Another thing, did the original series shuttles have warp? I didn't think they did.
We didn't have any kind of confirmation that they did. We talked about it during our rewatch of Discovery season 1.
Oh, did we?
Where it was like the earliest noted version of a warp speed vessel. So
a warp speed shuttle. Okay. I just looked it up and it was, it bothered me because I didn't remember the original series shuttles going to warp. I thought that, it wasn't until Next Generation the shuttles had warp, but in this, a Section 31 shuttle had warp, which again, not a flaw. It could have been a Section 31 thing, but I was just curious if that was another technological thing that the Section 31 had.
We have seen shuttles with warp that were just your standard Starfleet shuttles in Discovery have warp. Okay. But I don't remember the original series actually. I don't think they ever had tackled it, honestly.
I looked it up, and apparently there are episodes where they never talk about it, but like shuttles, there's like apparently in the menagerie, there's a shuttle that chases the Enterprise and is able to keep up with it. So you can assume it has warp drive, but they never talk about it having warp drive.
That's solid. All right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
For sure. Did you want to get to quotes?
I did have something else. Like, I don't have many quotes. Like, the only quote I actually have is Tilly saying everything sounds better sounds cooler with time in front of it.
Yeah, I liked that. And especially that it was followed up with, getting readings off the rift. Time rift. It's really, the delivery from Pike there was really beautiful.
Yeah. Oh, I did like Tyler kind of questioning Pike about what Michael Burnham's personal mission was, and he's like, I said it was personal.
Yeah, everything. I feel like every line Pike delivers this episode was awesome.
Which is pretty standard.
Yeah, for sure.
I feel like.
For sure. I loved Mr. Tyler. The chair outranks the badge.
That was so good.
So good. So good.
I really loved the bit where Tilly rambles about how she's not supposed to swear on duty.
Yeah. I thought it was weird that it was friggin', though. I guess that's a swear word in Starfleet.
I think they were just like confused as to her usage of it, and then she was like, you told me I'm not supposed to swear on duty.
Oh, I gotcha. I gotcha. That makes sense. I really was confused by that sentence.
Did you, what, do you have quotes?
Yeah, I got a couple more.
Okay.
But yeah, I sorry, we dove into quotes. You said you had one more thing.
Yeah, I am, like, we're going to Talos 4. And I do wonder if this is the adventure that explains why going to the planet is the only death penalty left on the books. General Order 7, I believe it was. Because, damn it, I didn't see anything in the cage or the menagerie that would, like, elicit that kind of drastic reaction to be like, this is a death penalty for going to Talos 4. Like, there were some aliens that, like, made you think certain things were going on that weren't. I mean, that we've seen shit like that in Star Trek before.
Yeah, that whole idea that it's the only place the death penalty seems really crazy. Now I can see like kind of like the Nexus. I could see people like being obsessed with going there if they have a problem they want fixed in their lives or they want to live a different life.
Yeah.
I could see like a Tolian Soren situation where he's seeking out the Talos 4 so hard that he like hurts other people and stuff. Maybe they've had that problem, and so maybe then they put it on the death penalty. They give him a death penalty. But yeah, it doesn't seem like that's a really good case for having the only thing your society agrees should still be like, maybe if it was not the only death penalty, like it was just one of.
Well, they did say it was the only death penalty left on the books.
No, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, I'm agreeing with you.
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch what you were saying.
Yeah, that's weird. So yeah, maybe there is something different there.
Yeah, the Talosians though, they look weird on this Discovery.
Yeah, I thought they looked close enough to the original Talosians that like I'm on board. It looked like just updating of the makeup to me. I could still tell they were the Talosians. They still looked like the Talosians.
I just think the Talosians looked perfect the way they were.
I thought they looked cheesy in the old stuff.
That's interesting.
But yeah, we'll see how they look next week. I guess next week. So, last couple quotes. I really liked, sorry, there's no way to get rid of him, sir. Ash talking about Voke. And, again, it's another Pike quote. Pike says, I know the feeling. Loved that. It was really great. I liked, Stamets talking about the time rift. He says, it just like, I loved how matter of fact this statement was. He says, it doesn't look distorted to me. It looks anomalous. It's so like, that's so like specific scientific language to talk about the things instead of like, I just enjoyed the specificity of that. And this, I don't know, this probably is my favorite quote. It's a little sappy, but I still liked it. It was just a nice moment. He said, Tilly, trust the math. More importantly, trust yourself. I wouldn't let just anyone beam me in and out of time.
Yeah, that was fun. That was good.
I liked that. I like that Tilly has earned the trust of the crew and, is, doing her thing. So, trivia?
I don't really have a whole lot of trivia. I do have some like, I don't know, just kind of observations, I guess. Did you notice that they showed the tech suit for the Red Angel in the opening credits this week?
Yes, I did notice that. Have they been doing that all season and we just never noticed it?
Oh no. They've been changing the intros like a little bit at a time as the season unfolds.
I've been skipping the intros, so that's my fault.
I never skip the intros, but I think I think it's the most gorgeous intro that Star Trek has ever had. That's love awesome. That intro.
I'm glad you like it. I think it's pretty cool.
And I've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. Like, I love the sound effects on this show. They sound like the original series. And this episode, we got some really cool close-ups of the toggle switches on the shuttle console.
Yeah,
that is my shit.
They seem like they were driving home the toggle switches this episode.
Oh yeah, and they can heavy hand that to me all day. I love that shit. Like,
yeah,
yes. I saw someone on Twitter point out this little nugget. Pike dumping his fuel to signal for help in the shuttle, and how that was kind of like Spock in the Galileo 7, and I'd forgotten about that. So that was cool.
Neat.
But yeah, I didn't see any like actual trivia floating around this episode. That cool. was.
Yeah, it's always gonna be tricky with these new episodes because they're not old episodes, but not a lot of people have had time to think about what the trivia is. It seems like the first week, when we do these episodes a little later, there's more trivia because I guess people on Memory Alpha have had time to think about things.
Yeah. It's when you get it sooner, you get a little less. You get it later, you get a little more, but you get it too late.
No one cares.
That's true.
I was saying if you get it too late, no one cares. Not no one cares about your sentence.
Oh, okay.
I thought you said if you get it too late, and then I was like, no one cares. But
gotcha.
I realized then the way you said, all right. It sounded like I was like, no one cares, Dave.
I was like, well, damn, man. That's
really funny. Okay.
That's cold. That's some cold shit.
It was. I was just cold as ice over here. All right. Anything else you want to touch on before we let these folks go?
Nah, I'm good, man.
Well, thank you guys for listening to the Star Trek Universe podcast. Appreciate you very much. Give us a rating and review wherever you can. It really helps us out. Helps us get the word out about the show. Share us on the social meds.
Yeah, the social meds.
The social meds.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, guys. Peace.
Live long and prosper.
To reach out to us, hit us up at StarTrekUcast.com, at Star Trek UCast on Twitter, Star Trek Universe Podcast on Instagram and Facebook. Just search for us there, or send us a message at StarTrekUcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to hear more from David C. Robertson, check out the DC On Screen podcast or maladjusted.tv. And if you want to hear more from Matthew Carroll, that's me, check out the Marvel Cinematic Universe podcast, or go listen to my music at MatthewCarrollmusic.com or anywhere you get music.